if that is a transgender female, they have the right to go in whatever they look like. We can't be the looking police. We can't say, excuse me, you don't look female enough to go into my toilet. It's just an awful place to be.
I point out that this means that anyone can go into the ladies, anyone can go into the gents, because we're literally not meant to be able to say to anybody, it's clear that you're not a man, it's clear that you're not a woman. So this is just an end to all sex-separated spaces.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Julian Discourse. You know that feeling when you talk to a so-called expert and quickly realize they don't even know the absolute basics of their own field? It is exactly like hiring a mechanic who can't even point to the engine. For years, the progressive establishment has demanded that we surrender biological reality and trust the science. But watch what happens in this explosive clip when brilliant author Helen Joyce asked a progressive trans doctor one simple, fundamental question. What is a woman? The entire elite narrative completely melts down on live television. Hit subscribe and let's watch this fake science get destroyed in real time.
Let's start the debate with this question. Establishing what we mean by sex and what we mean by gender. Helen Joyce.
Sex is biology. It's the thing that allows for sexual reproduction. It's the thing that's existed on this planet for more than 1 billion years. In mammals, half the mammals are male, half the mammals are female, and we're mammals. So half of us are men, half of us are women. That can't change. Mammals can't change sex. Some other animals can. Gender is an ambiguous word. Some people use it as a polite synonym for sex. Some people mean the stereotypes that people perform. Some people mean an inner feeling that's hard to define. So I tend not to use that word because it's too ambiguous.
What about you, Helen Webberley? What do you mean or establish by the word sex and gender?
Well, everyone says that sex is biology, and Helen here has just said that it's about reproduction. But there's, the chromosomes, the sexual function, the reproductive system, it's very various in humans, and to say that there's just one or the other is incorrect. There aren't just two ways that a body can be made. But whereas gender is a deep personal identity of somebody, of how somebody lives their life, how they express themselves, how they see themselves, and that's, as we know, is completely unrelated to their chromosome pattern or their organs, their anatomy.
What do you say about that complete distinction that is being made there by Helen Webberley in terms of gender?
I mean, first, it's just not true. There are only two sexes. And the reason there are only two sexes is because there are only two gametes. And the gametes are the thing that define the sexes. This is established in biology. But then this deep inner feeling, if sex is so nebulous, as Helen Webberley says, then how on earth is somebody meant to have this deep inner feeling? Like, what does it mean to feel like a boy or a girl if you don't even know what boy and girl mean? This just sounds like personality to me, or I don't know what it sounds like. It's just not defined.
Helen Webberley?
Well, it's like, what do you mean by personality? Okay, if it is personality, what's wrong with that? It's how somebody wishes to live their life. It's how somebody sees themselves,
so stereotypes.
How somebody fits into this world.
Stereotypes?
Well, why is personality a stereotype? I don't see it as a stereotype. And what do you mean by that?
But I mean, like, to call it something that's to do with being a boy or a girl, like, what? I mean, I just don't know what you mean. If a child comes out of the mother, everyone says that's a little boy because that's the body of a little boy, and then at some point that child says that they have a girl gender identity. What does that child mean if girl doesn't mean anything? If girl just means people who have a
girl doesn't mean anything?
Well, you did, because you haven't given us a definition. It's just circular. You've just said, it's a deep personal identity.
You said.
And you said that girls, there are many sexes, sex is varied, it could be chromosomes, it's nothing to do with your biology, You haven't given us something that somebody could talk about as a target for what it might mean to think that you are like a girl. You just had gone around in circles.
Well, goodness, I didn't think I'd had enough words to go around in circles, but there you go. I mean, your comment was there are only two sexes,
yep.
and that's because there are only two gametes.
Yep.
I think to boil the whole of humanity down to gametes, and for those who don't know what gamete is, it's basically an egg or a sperm. To say that the whole of humanity is to be dictated by whether your body produces eggs or sperm is so mathematical, so binary, so basic. It's actually a basic misunderstanding of biology.
No boiling down, no reducing to. We just come in two types. You're a boy or you're a girl. Do anything you like. Do not let it hold you back. Go to the moon, be the president, anything you like, but you'll still be a boy or still be a girl.
But you've boiled it down to gametes. You're saying you either have ovaries or testicles, but there are many different variations.
There
are people who are. But you're not a biologist, you're not a doctor. How do you know? You sit there shaking your head saying there really aren't.
What are the variations, Helen Weberly?
Well, in terms of biology, which is, I think, Helen Joyce is trying to explain, we do have chromosomes, and there are many different patterns of chromosomes. That we do have reproductive organs, and there are different variations. Not everybody is born with XX and 2 ovaries, a womb.
Are you talking about
vagina.
intersex? People being born intersex?
Well, you can use that term. There's many different chromosomal patterns.
But what does this have to do with gender identity anyway?
Well, no, because they're completely different. Exactly, you're grasping it. So biological sex is very different to gender identity, absolutely, and one is not dictated by the other.
There are 2 body plans, and there are sometimes anomalies, and they are very rare. But there are only 2 body plans.
Can I just put this question to you, Helen Weberly, about bodies, about biology? Mm-hmm. If we look at the proportion of trans women in terms of operations or surgery to remove their penises, what number are we talking about? What proportion, roughly, of trans women have had that kind of surgery?
I don't think we know that data, but when I last looked at that kind of data, I think around about 12% of people who reassign their sex choose to have genital surgery.
So it's low?
12%.
Yes, I mean that is low. Would you agree?
Well, it depends what level you're comparing it with.
Well, I'm comparing it to anything that's above 12%, but it is a pretty low figure. Does that surprise you?
No. That's about what I thought it was too. Most trans women are just completely standard physiological men.
Right. I mean, taking that into account, Helen Weberly, do you think that a predatory man would ever use a transgender identity to get into a female-only space, like a hospital ward, a prison, or a changing room?
I think it's a very dangerous thing to associate transgender women with predatory men. So some men, whether they are trans women in identity or whether they are male in identity, some people, if you like, who have XY chromosomes, if we leave it there, will be predatory. But the difficulty is when we make that association that trans women automatically equals predator.
Well, I don't think anyone will say it automatically equals it, but at the same time, Helen Weberly has a point. It is a dangerous thing to link the two if we're talking about predatory men across the piece.
What's very dangerous is taking down the boundaries that keep male people out of spaces that female people need there to be no male people in.
But a predatory man might gain entry in some way or another.
And so do you leave your front door open when you go out just because a burglar might get in? Otherwise, we can't, nothing is foolproof. We have systems in order to safeguard. No safeguarding is perfect. We say no male people here, knowing that some men may come in, but the rule is clear cut. It's no men, it's no male people, and when we soften that boundary, we make it easier for bad people to come in. The people who use loopholes are precisely the worst people. So we have to be very clear, and that's no male people. The people who use loopholes are the worst people. If you have a loophole, bad people go through it.
Do you think there should be those protections then to reduce and minimise the risk that somebody might ever use or abuse? As you say, you don't want it equated with transgender or being a trans woman, that they should be minimised when it comes to sharing those spaces.
Well, I think what Helen said was that no male should enter a female space, and I think we've solved the argument because transgender women are female. They are female, and
biologically male, Helen Joyce would say.
She might say, but the Equality Act...
And many people would.
Well, if I might just go back to the Equality Act. The Equality Act protects 2 characteristics. It protects sex, and it also protects gender reassignment. And gender reassignment in the Equality Act is reassigning your sex. That's what the definition is.
But you have said it's a very, well, I said it was a low figure, but you said it's only around 12% who have that sort of surgery.
Which doesn't change your sex anyway.
Excuse me. The surgery is unrelated to that. In the Equality Act, your gender reassignment, you don't have to have surgery.
Can I just ask you then, Helen Joyce, how comfortable are you that under the leaked guidance that we've had today, the Supreme Court was very clear that biological sex is the definition of a woman, and a man. And for the purposes of the Equality Act, in that sense, we can talk about protected characteristics later on, but in terms of the Equality Act, the leaked document implies that there will be transgender people who have lived in their acquired gender, perhaps for decades. They could be confronted and questioned about their sex. That's undignified and intrusive, isn't it?
What's undignified and intrusive is coming into a space that is not for your sex, that is there for the other sex. Nobody should be trying to use a space that is not for their sex. Helen Weberly said that gender reassignment changes people's sex. It doesn't. It doesn't do that in reality, and it doesn't do it in law. They're separate characteristics. The Supreme Court was very clear on that. So a trans woman is a man for the purposes of the Equality Act and in reality. And we can all tell who the men and the women are by using our eyes and ears. It's how humanity has done it all along.
How can you tell? How can you always tell that somebody who, yes, maybe arrives at a communal changing room, maybe goes to the theatre and wants to use the loos, the lavatories that their gender have acquired. What is it that tells you immediately, I know what sex you are?
Are you ever puzzled when you look at the people around you, what sex they are? Because I'm not. And it's no one feature. We're very, very good at recognising sex. It's a ceiling attribute of humans that we can tell what sex people are. 99.99% accuracy, instantaneously.
Well, I clearly disagree with that. And I think, to boil down in 2025 in the United Kingdom, Great Britain, that we're actually going to let people's, what they look like, dictate which facility or service they're allowed to use by what they look like. I just don't. I can't believe that we would even think to go back to that.
If you saw a 6'2" man with a beard and he was speaking and you could hear his voice was very deep and he went into the ladies' changing room after a 6-year-old girl, would you think there might be something wrong here?
Helen, you talk about the 6. Your arguments are always, it's got to be over 6 foot.
No, I'm
it's
just
got
asking
to be.
you, I'm giving you a specific example.
And I'm answering. And it's got to go in after a 6-year-old girl, and it's a man.
But yes or no?
I haven't finished. Can you let me finish? The thing is, we're talking. And used to call him a man. Men don't go into the female spaces.
Sometimes
women
they do.
And transgender women are women, and they go into female spaces. And the fact that you portray this 6-foot man over 6 foot going in after a girl, all the image you want to give is this man is so dangerous. I don't think that we in our society should be portraying men as automatically dangerous.
But what is your answer to the specific? Just for argument's sake, if you saw that scenario, what would you be thinking, Helen Weberly?
If I saw a 6-foot man going into a female...
Well, don't worry too much about the height, but yes, a bloke, a big
someone
man...
Someone you can really tell is clearly male.
What would be going through your mind?
You're answering. If that is a transgender female, they have the right to go in whatever they look like. We can't be the looking police. We can't say, excuse me, you don't look... female enough to go into my toilet. It's just an awful place to be.
I mean, where are trans women supposed to go, Helen Joyce?
Can I just point out that this means that anyone can go into the ladies, anyone can go into the gents, because we're literally not meant to be able to say to anybody, it's clear that you're not a man, it's clear that you're not a woman. So this is just an end to all sex-separated spaces. So, I mean, where are transgender women meant to go to the toilet? If they're not happy using the men's, which is where they should go because they are men, then hopefully there's a gender-neutral option for them. If there isn't, I'm afraid they're going to have to use the men's, because what is out of order is using the women's because they are not women, they are male.
When the credentialed experts demanding that we trust the science cannot even answer the simple foundational question, what is a woman? The entire ideological charade falls apart. Notice the exact rhetorical trick the doctor tried to play. She immediately pointed to chromosomal variations and rare reproductive anomalies to claim that biological sex is just a nebulous spectrum. Let's be very clear about the actual science here. She is talking about intersex conditions, medically known as differences of sexual development. These conditions affect a tiny fraction of 1% of the global population. Using incredibly rare medical anomalies to completely erase and rewrite the definition of biological sex for the other 99.9% of humanity is not medicine. It is deliberate political manipulation. And the public is completely exhausted by this gaslighting, because the real-world consequences of this fake science have been devastating. To understand how the tide aggressively turned, look back to the publication of the landmark Cass Review in April 2024. That devastating independent medical report officially exposed how activist doctors had hijacked the healthcare system to push experimental, irreversible gender transitions on vulnerable children based on what Dr. Hilary Cass explicitly called remarkably weak evidence. That medical scandal was the major turning point. It shattered the illusion of elite consensus. It is exactly why we've seen the political landscape fundamentally shift, leading to the necessary push to clarify the UK's Equality Act so that the protected characteristic of sex legally means biological sex. That legal clarification is what permanently protects women's single-sex spaces, domestic abuse shelters, and hospital wards from activist loopholes. The elite class genuinely assumed they could simply bully ordinary people into surrendering their common sense by throwing around academic jargon. But as Helen Joyce brilliantly proved, all it takes is one person calmly demanding a definition to expose the fact that the establishment emperor has absolutely no clothes. Thank you for watching Julian Discourse. If you refuse to let the elite class rewrite biological reality, hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and I'll see you in the next one.